What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Corey Austin Theorem. I appreciate you joining me once again, where we talk about kratom use, 7-hydroxy, really any substance use and or abuse goes on this channel. Any of it. And there's different schools of thought about substance use, substance abuse. The NA, AA community tends to think if you've identified yourself as a person who is unable to control substance use, mind-altering substances, then you best not touch anything, lest you eventually be sucked back down that rabbit hole of addiction, which is basically just straight down the gutter, straight down the toilet bowl, and your life is pretty much in shambles at that point, right? A lot of people don't really subscribe to that. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think that addiction is more so a cognitive behavioral therapy, a cognitive behavioral sort of issue. And I think really what it's all about and what it's more about is figuring out the root of why it is that you tend to abuse substances anyway. Now, a lot of people think you're just born this way, you kind of have a genetic predisposition. What does that mean? Well, if your father was an alcoholic, you have a higher chance of being an alcoholic because of your father's alcoholism, right? Now, there's two parts to that, okay? Are you more likely to be an alcoholic because there is an actual physiological, anatomical, or genetic predisposition for you to be one? In other words, the same blood that ran through your father's veins is also running through your veins, therefore you're more likely to be an alcoholic. Or is it a case of nurture versus nature? Nature being the anatomical, physiological, the genetic component of, same blood running through your veins as your father's, therefore you are more likely than another person to become an alcoholic because your father was. Then there's the nurture aspect of it, where it is not necessarily because you share the same genes or share the same blood, but you were brought up in it, you were brought up around it, you were raised in it, you were raised around it. Your father drank himself to an oblivion every night. That's what you saw. Therefore, that's what you learned. Thus, that's what you began to do, and that's what you became. That's how you yourself learned to cope with life and cope with issues, problems, troubles, all those things, whatever it is, right? And, there's a little bit of science to support both of these, the nature and the nurture. That some of it is just downright genetic, that you have that predisposition because the blood of your alcoholic father is also the blood in your veins. And then there's also some scientific research that supports the fact that it's not really so much that you have the same blood, it's that you're both exposed to the same things, and you being the child of an alcoholic parent, that is what you learn. You tend to do what you learn. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so to speak, right? So I think a safe approach when looking at substance abuse, substance use, is to kind of look at the big picture, right? Being aware that you may be more at risk for developing some sort of substance abuse issue if you do in fact have a parent or two parents that you grow up with and around who also tend to lean into substances, right? And also accepting the fact that there may be a genetic component. You may be a person that just really shouldn't have a drink because you had an alcoholic parent or two alcoholic parents. And it may not be quite as much the fact that you just grew up around it and it was in your household and you saw it, therefore that's what you do. It could have to do with your brain just works differently. You're just different than a lot of other people out there because of your predisposition to develop alcoholism, drug addiction, whatever the case is, right? But I do tend to think that it's a cognitive behavioral sort of thing. And, you know, we know all the way dating back to Pavlov's dog that you can not only create a new habit, but you can break an old habit. You just can. And really, what it all boils down to, even if you're looking at Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, any of those programs, really what it is very, very hands-on advanced cognitive behavioral therapy. They have learned that by having a support system, other people who, share some of the same cognitive behavioral issues, such as addiction, the same way you do, and having someone to help hold you accountable for your own substance use and your own substance abuse, those are surefire ways to help not only break old habits, but develop new habits. Just is what it is, right? So if you think that NA or AA is anything different than that, it's not. It's not. But let's just say that you have begun using something like Kratom, 7-hydroxy, and this really can go for anything. But I talk specifically on this channel about Kratom and 7-hydroxy because that's what I have the most experience with. You know, things that have an opiate-like, you notice I said the word like, effect. It's not an opioid. Doesn't come from the doesn't come from the opium plant, so it's not an opioid, but it does have opiate-like effects when taken, right? So staying off of that stuff long term is one thing. Getting off of it is something completely different, and that's more so what I talk about on this channel. So if you're anybody out there, you found yourself kind of nose deep in the whole Kratom trap or 7-hydroxy trap, if you're not going to go the professional route and go to like a rehab or a detox facility, there are ways that you can successfully come off of it and get off of it, okay? One of those ways is heavy exercise, heavy cardiovascular type exercise, okay? That is one way that you can successfully come off. The best way to come off of anything that you have found yourself, I wouldn't say hooked on, but dependent on, I like that word better, is to taper from that substance. In other words, if you're taking 25 grams per day of Kratom, you would want to, every 3 or 4 days, drop that dose from 25 to then 24 and a half. Stay on that for a stabilization period of 3 to 5 days, then drop it down to 24 grams per day. Stay on that stabilization period, 3 to 5 days, then you're going to want to drop it to 23 and a half. If you feel comfortable going down a gram at a time, then you do that. It's all about what you're comfortable with. Now, if you do a slow taper method like this, you're still going to have some discomfort. And the way you have to think about this is, if you're tapering and you have absolutely zero discomfort whatsoever, then you're really not tapering. Okay? Because naturally, if you've become physically dependent upon something, when you taper, even if you go down by just a little bit, your body is going to be uncomfortable just a little bit. Okay? And that's just the way this thing works. So, with that said, you want to be a little uncomfortable, but you don't want to be as uncomfortable as you would be if you were to just do a complete cold turkey and just completely stop taking kratom. Right? Because then your body is basically going to bitch a fit at you. It's going to be like, I've had all this extra dopamine from this kratom that I've been taking. Now I don't have the kratom. And then your body's electrical impulse system is just all out of whack. And that's when you get the physical dependency, you get the sickness, you get the withdrawal symptoms like the cold sweats, the lethargy, very, very low mood, low energy, all of these things that you begin to develop that one would consider uncomfortable symptoms, right? That's when you start to develop that. And it all depends on how long you've been taking it. Now, if you're a person who only takes it a couple times a week or even a few times a week, you may be able to stop with little to no real physical withdrawal symptoms, right? Even if you're a person that takes it every day, but you're not taking it in a large amount every day, or let's say you're only taking it once a day, you could potentially probably stop taking it and not have a whole ton of physical withdrawals that would be what a person would consider debilitating. All right? The debilitating withdrawal symptoms come when you get into this routine of taking a substance like kratom or 7-hydroxy, not only daily, but you're dosing on it multiple times per day. You know, if you get to be one of those people where, and it does increase your tolerance. Your tolerance will increase for it the more you use it, okay? And what that means is the amount that got you high a month ago doesn't really get you high now. So then you have to take more. And also, it will leave out of your system quicker. And you won't be high for as long as you were when you took that same amount a month ago. So what people start doing is, well, when I first started taking it, I was taking it every 6 hours or so, and I was good with that, not a problem, right? But once my tolerance begins to increase, then I find myself needing or wanting to take it once every 4 hours, right? And then once that trend continues, the tolerance increases again. Then people often will get to a point where they're taking that shit every couple of hours. Or they start feeling like shit. They start going into at least minor withdrawal. That's what that increased tolerance of something like kratom or 7-hydroxy can do for you, or do to you, right? And once you get to the point where you're taking something like that every couple of hours or every few hours, multiple times per day, every day, and then you're just in this routine of doing it all the time, you are bound to have some pretty debilitating physical and mental withdrawals when you go to stop. Now, when you taper little by little, it shouldn't be as debilitating, But if you do a cold turkey sort of thing, when you've gotten to where you're taking this stuff 6, 8, 10 times per day, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem for you. So if you're not a person that's able to control it and only take it, just a few times a day, maybe 3 times a day, or maybe just a few times a week, even better, right? If you're able to control it in that way, then you shouldn't have a huge problem with coming off of it. But let's say you've worked yourself into a pickle where you're taking it all the time, every day, multiple times per day, and when you go to try to stop, it just downright sucks and you feel like shit. Exercise helps a lot. Tapering little by little by about a 0.5 gram at a time can help. Drinking a ton of water to kind of help flush out the toxins can help. People swear by megadosing on vitamin C. They say high doses of vitamin C can really help to eliminate the withdrawal. So there's that. In addition to that, you have supplements like agmatine, L-tyrosine, things like that can help with decreasing any anxiety that you might experience with coming off of it. Also with helping to increase dopamine and kind of increase your mood a little bit. Kava can kind of help relax the body, relax the mind when you're going through, some sort of situation where you have increased anxiety and low mood due to coming off of something like either 7-hydroxy or kratom. Eating bananas for potassium can help with restless legs. Magnesium can help relax the body, also can help relax the mind, to help you get a little bit of rest in the evening. So you've got things like that. Let's see what else. All of these things that I'm mentioning can also help if you are a person who's like, you know what, the taper takes too freaking long. I don't have time to be, putting 2-3 months into a taper. I'd rather just rip the freaking Band-Aid off and get it over with, and I'm just going to do a cold turkey. All of these things that I've previously mentioned can also help in that scenario as well. Now, there's not really anything that you do that's going to take the withdrawals away completely. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not. Right? But, it can help, to help you get through those difficult times and, provide yourself a little bit of relief. You're not going to get out completely unscathed. There's just no way. Unless, of course, you're doing something like taking something like Suboxone or methadone, God forbid, something like that. But the problem with those substitutes is that if you get stuck on those for a long period of time, you will also have withdrawals from coming off of those. Right? You don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want withdrawals from all of that shit. So anyway, just a little bit of knowledge for you guys. Also a little bit of knowledge on how you can go about trying to come off of kratom or 7-hydroxy if you're interested in doing that. Just wanted to drop a little bit of knowledge about where this idea of addiction comes from. Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it genetic? Or is it just the environment that you grow up in? This is a subject of very, very hot debate in the scientific community, and it really has been for ages. And really, nobody knows for sure, to be honest with you. The whole idea is if you have family members, especially parents, that suffer from substance abuse or addiction, if you'd like to call it that, the bottom line is your ass needs to be careful. Because whether it's nature or nurture, whether it's genetic or just the environment that you grow up in, either way, you are at higher risks for developing an addiction to it. Now, that doesn't always have to be the case. There are people out there that grow up with an alcoholic father, and they say to themselves as a kid, I'm never going to put my family through this shit. I'm never going to have to go through, I'm never going to make my children or my spouse go through all the shit that my dad put my family through because of his alcoholism. And then they just never touch anything. So that it's not a foregone conclusion that if you have drug addict or alcoholic parents that you are going to fall into that same category. You might be more at risk, but doesn't mean you have to fall into that same pattern. Doesn't mean that. There are people that make a decision at a young age. They're not going to do that shit. They're not going to ruin their lives in that way. They're not going to ruin the lives of their family members in that way. So it really just depends. But I'm going to go. I just want to drop a quick vid for you guys. Love you guys very much. If you would, please do subscribe to this channel. If you enjoy someone just giving their thoughts on this sort of thing, someone that has some experience on this sort of thing, and like the video as well. That helps the algorithm a lot. Comment down below. If you'd like to toss your boy a couple of bones, you can hit this thanks button right here, the one that I'm pointing at. Toss your boy a couple of bones for the time that I put into it. That will be greatly appreciated, but I can assure you I do not do it for the money. I have a job, guys. So does my wife. We're fine monetarily, but anybody who spends their time doing anything would like to get monetarily compensated because time is money. It just is, right? But I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Peace.